I've never told anyone this before, but what happened that weekend still haunts me to this day. My name is Jason. I'm 21 years old and I live in a small town in Oregon. What I'm about to tell you is something I'll never forget. Some might say it's nothing, just a coincidence, but I swear, what I experienced that night had no logical explanation. It was a weekend. My parents had gone on a 2-day trip to visit some relatives on their farm. I decided to stay home. I had a big exam coming up and needed to work on a university project. I wasn't completely alone though. Our loyal German Shepherd Marlo was with me. He's a big dog and always made me feel safe. But that night, something felt different. The rain started in the evening, heavy, non-stop rain. I was upstairs in my room, headphones in, focused on my laptop, sipping tea. Around 1:45 a.m., Marlo suddenly started whining. Not barking, whining. A low, uneasy sound as he slowly backed into the corner of my room. That was so unlike him. I took my headphones off and listened. At first, nothing, but there was this weird feeling in my gut, like someone was watching me. I got up and walked toward the stairs that led to the first floor. Marlo didn't follow me. He just stood there, ears back, tail tucked. That's when I heard it clearly. A soft creak, and then the unmistakable sound of a window sliding open. My stomach dropped. I ran downstairs. Everything was dark except for the faint glow of the streetlights bleeding through the big living room window. I made my way to the kitchen and froze. The window above the sink was open. Rain was blowing in, and on the floor, wet footprints. Big ones, adult-sized. They started at the window, walked a few steps forward, and just stopped. Could barely breathe. My mind was racing. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. I searched the entire house, closets, behind curtains, under tables. No one was there. The front door was still locked. Nothing was broken, but that window was open, and Marlo still hadn't come downstairs. I didn't sleep that night. I left every light on and kept Marlo right next to me. The next morning, I remembered the old security camera we had above the front door. I pulled up the footage and scrolled back to around 1:40 a.m. And what I saw nearly made my heart stop. There was a man standing outside, soaking wet, no umbrella, not moving, just staring at the house. He stood there for exactly 45 minutes. Then, without warning, he stepped out of frame. He didn't walk toward the door, he didn't go down the street. He just vanished. I couldn't see his face clearly, but there was something off about it. Like he was smiling, just a little. Like he knew I was watching. I've never forgotten that image. We called the police. They came and checked the property. They didn't find anything. Said it was probably a homeless guy or some drunk passing by. But that doesn't explain the footprints that led into the middle of my kitchen and then stopped. It doesn't explain the open window or why Marlo was terrified to go downstairs. Since that night, I've never stayed in that house alone again. And every time it rains, I still feel eyes watching me from behind the glass. I'd be grateful if you could like the video before I continue the story. Everything started the day my mom called and said my grandmother had been hospitalized due to a heart condition, and someone needed to stay at her house for a few days. Honestly, at first I thought it would be nice, a little escape from the chaos of dorm life and university. My name is Haley, I'm 19, and well, I couldn't have guessed that this little trip would turn into the strangest and scariest experience of my life. Grandma's house was in a small, quiet town called Willow Creek. It was an old 2-story wooden house with tall windows and a big yard filled with dried-up autumn leaves. When I arrived, the wind was rustling through the branches, and the sound of crunching leaves filled the air. From the very first moment, something deep inside told me something wasn't right. The first night was okay. I had dinner, watched a bit of TV, and went to bed early. But on the second night, everything began. When I was about to sleep, I noticed the living room window was open. I thought, that's weird. I closed it this afternoon. I shut it and went to bed. But in the morning, it was open again. I got a bit worried. Maybe the latch was loose or the wind blew it open. But something didn't feel right. That night, I set up my phone to record the living room. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't imagining things. That third night, I felt something was off. Before bed, I made myself a cup of tea and sat on the couch by the fireplace. It was cold and the wind whistled through the cracks in the window. The crackle of the fire and its gentle warmth calmed me down a little. But then, I heard a thump from upstairs, like something had fallen. I went up and checked the rooms. Nothing. But that damn feeling, like someone was watching me. Grandma's closet door was half open, even though I'd shut it in the morning. I stared at it. For a second, I thought I saw something in the dark. A shadow, a small movement. I stepped closer and opened it fully. It was empty, but there was this strange smell, a mix of old perfume and wet soil. On the fourth night, I decided to leave the upstairs lights on. Maybe it was silly, but I didn't want to be caught in the dark again. Around 2 a.m., I woke up. Could feel someone walking around the house. Heavy but quiet footsteps, like someone trying not to wake me. I stepped out of my room. Everything went quiet, no sound at all, except my own breathing. I walked to the stairs and looked down. The kitchen light was on. I knew I turned it off. I felt a knot in my stomach. Just then, I heard the familiar soft creak of the living room window opening. That same sound. The rustle, the squeaky hinges, like a cursed melody on repeat. I went downstairs, phone in hand, heart pounding in my chest. I turned on the camera and set it on the table, pointing at the window. I don't know why, I just felt like I had to record it. At that exact moment, the curtain shifted. Not from the wind. Something pulled it. Then, that white hand slowly rose from the bottom and slid the window open. What I saw in the footage still gives me chills. Around 2 a.m., a pale, bony hand appeared and pushed the window open. Slowly, carefully, like something out of a horror movie. Then a face, a blurred face, staring through the glass. My heart was racing. I stayed awake all night with the lights on, a kitchen knife by my bed. I called my mom the next day, but she thought I was just stressed or watching too many horror movies. She told me to stay alert and keep the doors locked. The next night, the same sounds. The window opening, something crawling, and a soft but heavy breathing. I couldn't take it anymore. I sat behind the living room door with a flashlight. No one came. I decided to dig deeper. I zoomed in on the previous night's footage, and when I saw the face clearly, my blood ran cold. It was an old woman. Her features eerily resembled my grandmother. The same hair, the same facial lines. But how could that be? Mom said Grandma was still in the hospital and hadn't even gotten out of bed. Terrified, I went to the police and showed them the video. They came and investigated the house, but there were no signs of forced entry, no broken windows, nothing. Even when they reviewed the footage frame by frame, they couldn't help much. Later, Mom and I visited Grandma in the hospital and showed her the video. She just smiled calmly and softly said, "Is she still there?" Since that night, I've never stayed alone in that house again. Even now, as I'm writing this, the sound of the wind behind the window makes me uneasy. There's a heaviness in the air, like something or someone is still around. Something that won't let me forget. Maybe some secrets really aren't meant to be uncovered. If you want to hear more scary stories, make sure to subscribe so we can reach 1,000 subs soon and bring you more.